garden. So it's recovering pretty well. So this year I'm trying to see what it's like to grow a ground cover, and the lamb's quarters all came up, so they protected these squash really well. So these squashes are good. I just gotta trim it down because it's starting to get too big.
If you had bunnies, they would be in heaven.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
I cut it down for the chickens. I harvested like 20 pounds the other day.
I bet you do. Do you mind if I show a close-up of it?
Sure, yeah.
Because this isn't lamb's quarters. What is this? Is it lamb's quarters?
Yeah.
Well, it's
just
the
really
most
well watered.
beautiful. It's gorgeous. It looks like it was an on-purpose crop.
Yeah. You like my magpie?
I just saw that. I'm like, death to all predator egg-eating birds.
They're smart, and if they see dead magpies, they know to stay away. So we killed that one and hung it up.
Welcome back to Braid Girls, guys, and the original Braid Girls are back together, which is the best thing ever. Not that we haven't had fun, because we've had amazing guest stars on, and that has been really fun, but I've really missed Melanie. So we are here at 7 o'clock in the morning.
And it's freezing cold in July.
I'll talk about my favorite essential oil lately has been lavender. I had never used it before I met Melanie. And I had a touch of too much sun on my part a few weeks ago, and I put lavender in a carrier oil and put it on my part, and the weird was that all of a sudden my hair started growing like gangbusters.
Oh.
Have you ever heard of that as like a side effect of lavender?
No, but it doesn't surprise me. Well, it's so antibacterial, and it's just so healthy for your skin, and so healing.
Yeah.
So that it makes sense.
So that's why my hair looks really
That's
weird, is because
right.
last night I had put a treatment of lavender oil on, so that's why
It's pretty.
oily looking. How about you? Anything special in your oil?
Well, I made some salve last week, I think it was, and I put marjoram in there because it's really anti-inflammatory, and so it's for my hands after I come in from the garden and they're all tired and worn out, and that's been wonderful.
I love that.
I really like that. It
Yeah.
smells very very herbal.
Does it?
Yeah.
Not like spaghetti sauce.
It does if I mixed it with the wild orange. So then it's really kind of citrusy, herbal. It's really nice.
I love that.
Yeah, I'll have to send you home with some.
I know. Where do we want to start on the... Do we want to just tell them about what our usual frost date is and what our actual frost date was this time?
Oh my gosh. What was it? Was it like June?
Usually people...
It was like June 26th or
Yeah.
something when it happened.
And then it happened, at least at my place, it happened 3 nights in a row.
Did it really? Ugh.
Yeah. Usually people around here will plant the middle of May, because the 1st of June is a lot of times a last frost date.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll be later, but usually around the 1st of June you'll have your last frost date.
Well, here where we're at, it's considered you have all of your garden in by Memorial Day.
Yeah.
And that's just, you don't have to worry about it after that.
Yeah. Okay, so we had to come in a little bit closer because we're starting to brighten up, and not sure you can hear us.
Yeah, the wind and the roosters.
So usually last frost date, 1st of June-ish. This time we got it end of June-ish.
Yeah.
And pole beans were taken out. Both of us had little edges of other sensitive things like squash and sunflowers.
Yeah, it took out several of my squashes. Thankfully, I had several that were okay.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of my bush beans got hit the worst.
Yeah.
And my potatoes were almost completely flattened.
Yeah. So what are our thoughts on living in a climate that is this fun? We don't have the pests so much. If we're in an outside garden, we don't have the pests so much. It gets too cold here in the winter for them to overwinter in the soil. But as far as how short our season is and how much we have to protect things and micromanage things,
Yep.
I know I have my own tips. What are your tips on making sure you still have food that comes in?
Well, one thing that really helped out was just to have that really high weed cover, or like a cover crop, so that for that early day, even if all I did was grew those lamb's quarters until we're mid-July or something like that, and then I mulch everything, that still gets me through that harsh period because they just insulated all of my squashes. So that was a really, really big help. The other thing is, if I would have been checking the weather, I thought we were in the clear.
Right.
I could have just turned the sprinkler on, and it didn't hit hard enough that would have taken care of it. It mimics the dew and would have kept everything warm enough that I wouldn't have had any losses at all.
Yeah.
So, oh well.
Right. It's one of those things where you put so much time into it and it's really warm during the day. So you're like,
well, we were like,
it's so hot.
What was it, 85?
Yeah, it was so hot.
The day before, it was 90 something a couple days later, and we had a frost in the middle of that. It was crazy.
You're just not thinking about it.
Yeah.
And past history, you're just kind of taking it for granted that you won't get a frost in the end of June, almost July.
But I've heard that here where I live, we've had snow in July.
We've had it for the 4th of July. Like at the parade, it has snowed before. On a blazing hot day in the 80s and 90s, all of a sudden it will snow. So it won't get cold, but the cloud cover will suddenly come over and it will dump snow. It's bizarre. It's okay. It's okay that it's bizarre. My tips are just about exactly the same. And that is that I plant very, very, very densely.
Well, we just thinned that week. I thought, okay, we're set. So I had several things that were really tight, and I mean, it was literally like a day or two before we thinned them, and then they died.
Yeah, it's just too much. They don't, all that airspace around something when it freezes, or if you don't have it mulched and it gets really, really hot, it being by itself will dry it out a lot faster. It's just your timing. There's no way to predict what timing you should be using. You just kind of have to go with the flow. And for me, the thing that I do is that I am perpetually reseeding. I always have a new batch of something going in, even if everything looks fine, because a late harvest is better than no harvest at all.
Yep.
And I think it's nice to have younger, like even with cucumbers and things, it's nice to have a younger batch coming on just behind the last one, because then if
you get mildew or something.
Yeah, if something happens, you always have a backup. And we have the space. She has a beautiful big garden, and there's always a hidey hole, and it's flat. And there's always a hidey hole where you can stick another seed up to a certain point. There gets to be a certain point where there's not going to be anything, but.
Well, one thing that we did with the squashes is so much of what I've learned about gardening has been from my neighbors, because they're from this area, and so they've kind of taught me. And he said, oh, stick like 10 or 20 seeds in every hole. And I was like, 10 or 20 seeds? So I threw them in the hole, just like you said, and they came up as this little cluster, and it was stuff that we pulled out of other squashes. So it wasn't like, it was costing us $2 for every hole. So we just threw them in there, and that is the thing that saved me more than anything, because all those ones that had already popped up, they all died off, but there was other ones that were already germinated, and the next day they were already popping up. Yeah. So that was a really big lifesaver too, and I think that's what most of the people around here do, is they overplant everything. And because some things you're only going to get your first fruits from. You're not going to get, the 3 months that you might get down south. So you plant 3 times as many plants. Yeah. So that you can harvest a bigger harvest.
When you were telling me last time we were here, we came and brought our woofer over to meet Melanie, and she's shown us her garden, and the difference between packaged seeds and fresh seeds.
Yeah, like a foot difference in growth already. It's been amazing, because the ones that I bought, you have to soak them usually to get them going, and they're slow to germinate and come. The ones that I just tore open the squash and took the seeds out and threw them in the ground, like they popped up instantly, and the plants are double and triple the size of the ones from the seed packets.
They're vibrant.
Yeah.
I mean, we found the same thing, not from having torn open a pumpkin, but the pig planted pumpkins that grew.
Yeah.
I planted a ton of out of the package winter squash and pumpkins, but the ones that the pigs ate and buried were the ones that came up the earliest. They came up the greenest, and they were the only ones that actually ended up with fruit on them in my Back to Eden patch.
Well, and we had lettuce that had fallen, or seeds that had fallen from last year that popped up, and we were eating lettuce out of the garden just from that in, it was like the middle of May.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, well, this year I'm just going to shake all my lettuce onto the ground so that I have early lettuce next year.
It's like they want to be alive, or they have better instructions from the parent plant. I don't know, or the timing is better. When they're willing to fall, that's when they should be planted. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something is different about it.
It really makes a difference. So saving your own seed is worth it.
I think it's worth it. And also maybe some late season planting of things that then overwinter.
Yeah.
Because that's when they would have fallen from the parent plant, or having rotten pumpkins or squashes that you just let go. You let them rot in place wherever it is you want your pumpkin patch next year.
Yeah.
Maybe put compost over the top of it, but...
Well, that's what we're going to do with our potatoes this year. When we harvest them, we'll just leave a potato in each spot, and then they'll come up on their own next year, and we'll have a much earlier, bigger harvest that way too. So it's so funny. I'll have to show you my potato row. So last year, our potato row was the most dismal failure ever in this garden back behind us. We had just like sparse little potatoes that came up here and there. We didn't even harvest them. They were so lousy. Right. So this year I was like, I rotate my crops and all this and that. So I'm going to plant green beans right there. The green beans didn't have a chance to come up because there's so many potato plants that have come up in that row. And it works so much better to let nature do its natural.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Well, and then the biggest and the best come up they just do.
Yeah.
Because they made it through a hard winter, and
exactly.
They made it, so they're tough. It's instead of the selection that selects for a perfect situation.
Well, that's how I chose which squashes I was going to plant. Is because last year my neighbor gave me a squash seed, and it fell out of my hand and I couldn't find it. It dropped in a spot where the ground was so hard and so tough and so dry, and the kids would drag the hose over it to water the chickens. So it just get little drops of water here and there. It came up, produced more squash than anything else in the whole property. And so I saved one of those squashes so that I could use that one specifically. Right. And that's what's going gangbusters over here.
I love that.
So that's really worthwhile that you can select what is doing well in your place and what's good for your specific climate. Because, each of our yards is like a microclimate.
It is.
So I know, like, my neighbor right behind me, there's a fence that means nothing. It's a wire fence. It doesn't do anything.
Right?
He can grow on that side of the fence, and what I grow on this side of the fence are totally different. Yeah. And when he freezes and when I freeze, and it's so strange.
It is. Well, and you think about it, they talk about how in a teaspoon there's 1 billion little microorganisms.
Yeah.
And to these little microorganisms, a backyard away is a galaxy away.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
So the little differences that you make on your property are a big deal to these little microorganisms, And so something as little as having chickens or having cats or having children that are running around. Everything
move things around.
It does. It really is your own little piece of paradise that you can improve or let fallow or spray, and the dirt knows. The dirt knows. Was there anything else? As far as weeds go, what I have found, and every year I have to relearn it because every year I get frustrated, is that I go out and I cut all my weeds down, and I always end up with harder soil and less happy plants, even around my fruit trees.
Yeah.
They do not like it if I go and take all their weed cover away at the same time. While my
Yeah.
woofer was here, she went out and weeded my my swale. And usually I'll when I weed, I'll like take a few leaves off and lay them down in the swale so that it has some ground cover. And then I'll move along and I'll cut a little bit here and a little bit there. And she was so efficient and so amazing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this girl's a hard worker when I came back out and looked at my swale. Is that she had taken literally everything down. And it meant that the swales started to bake. And the same thing has happened with my fruit trees. If I have the geese go out and weed it, they only take a little bit at a time. The soil has a chance to kind of recuperate a little bit from all the ground cover coming off.
Right.
And so in our garden,
plus the geese won't pick it completely clean.
right? They won't, and especially they have a preference to take one thing before another, and
Right.
so it's an actual grazing rather than a clear cut. And so I haven't found the happy place between no weeds and tidiness and too many weeds choking out the vegetables. But I haven't weeded much. I planted really densely, and so we have a few weeds that came through. But for the most part, the plants have shaded out any competition, and now we're just pulling out seedlings that have gone to seed, especially with the spinach, so that the carrots that are the understory can come up. And so far I have found something like that to work really well, where I overseed with multiple different characteristic plants, like carrots and spinach. One's a root crop, one is a leaf crop.
Right.
And so as one gets old and is ready to go to seed, I can pull it out and feed it to the rabbits, and then whatever's underneath can take off because now it has enough sunlight. And that way you have a constant cover so you don't have weeds coming in, but also so that the soil doesn't dry out.
Yeah.
But who knows if that will actually end in like actual carrots. That has yet to be seen. So we hope you enjoyed this, Braid Girls. It was really fun for us to get back together.
Yes.
And I wish it happened more often, but it's kind of a mama thing. I think it's a mama thing. You do your best. You meet at 7 o'clock in the morning and sneak back home to do your chores. So if you guys have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments. And we love you guys, and we'll talk to you later. And your back to Eden looks beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, we're happy with it. We need some more chips.
Me too.
That's always the thing. We need more
Always.
chips.
Isn't that and that is the hard thing. I'm sitting here thinking, at what point can you stop mulching? And well, I guess the answer is if you're planting annual crops, you never stop.
No, because it just keeps on composting, and it doesn't. There is no stop.
Yeah, which I'm feeling a little whiny about that this year.
Yeah. Well, you want to see the potatoes?
Yep.
First, here, let me show you my beans that had trouble. But here's my
Beautiful.
here's my potato row. So they're these ones right here. You can kind of see the purple on them. They're completely blue potatoes, like blue inside and out.
We got some purple ones last year that we opened up for we feel like we're eating Play-Doh a little bit.
Yeah, they weren't our favorites, and that's part of the reason we didn't do like a super great job harvesting them, but I guess they better be our favorite this year.
Right? Maybe you like them better.
Yeah, there's some russets that are in here mixed, and we had a few mixed of things. I had to start over with cucumbers.
So
that was
nice.
fun.
Yeah.
So, thankfully, everything that we lost, though, is stuff that comes up fast.
Yeah. I don't think I even planted any cucumbers outside. I think I planted them in the greenhouse.
Yeah.
And just redid it several times to make sure that everything, somewhere, somehow, we would have some cucumbers come up.
Yeah.
I'm in my pajamas, by the way. We just got back from like our first ever camping trip.
Oh, did you?
And so I think it was funny. You're like, we could do it this morning. I'm like, I could milk.
I'd wondered, but
Just especially because we have a rooster.
yeah. Or 2 or 3.
Or 2 or 3. Okay, so I'm gonna collect my thoughts for a second. So, okay, I don't remember how we ended. I thought I better do our outro while we were sitting so